Hey everyone, this is PrinceWatercress, and welcome back to Let's Play Pac-Man for the Atari 2600. In the first video, we more or less accepted, well, I more or less accepted the fact that the arcade game, the arcade version, this is not. I mean, look at it. Listen to it. Play it. You'll know. And we also played the first game variation out of 8, which had a slow-moving Pac-Man at ghost moving at jogging speed. We're now going to play, what is it, game variation 2, which is the same thing, except the ghosts move at a much faster speed. They actually move at a running speed. And if I do a game select, look at that. Look at the bottom. We have a green bar with the number 1 on it and a red bar at the with a number 1 on it. These indicate that we are in 2-player mode and not 1. So this is a 2-player variation of game mode 1. The green bar is for player 1, the red bar is for player 2. And both players have squares matching the color of their representative bar to indicate how many lives that they themselves have left. And if we switch again, we now have the 1-player variation of game mode 2. So when it comes to switching game modes, you start off when you power on at game mode 1, 1-player mode. The 1-player version of game mode 1. And if you press the game select switch, you switch to the 2-player version of mode 1. Then it's the 1-player version of mode 2, followed by the 2-player version of mode 2, then 1-player mode 3, 2-player mode 3, 1-player mode 4, 2-player mode 4, so on and so forth, all the way to game mode 8. So now that we have game mode 2 selected, let's see how this goes. And oh dear, they're moving a little bit faster, but the aim of the game remains the same. Eat all the dots you can. Eat the power pills so you can eat the ghosts. Watch the ghosts as they return to the square right there in the upper center. Try not to die. That's pretty much it. And once you know what you're doing, you can easily play this. And I had to turn my sound down for a second because it was way too loud. I forgot to set the volume on my earbuds before I did any of this tonight. I'm recording this almost close to 11 p.m. and I could not get into the opening there, and I died because of that. I can't really tell the difference between the speed on mode 1 and the speed on mode 2, but maybe it'll seem more apparent as I keep playing through this. Maybe. And I got that 4th ghost just in time. That was amazing. Alright. Now, I'm not going to be able to get to the ghost in time, but that's not really going to bother me all that much. I can get everything as the ghosts all move away. And I thought I'd be able to get away from that ghost in time. That was not apparently the case. I can, however, eat all the ghosts in record time. and then go for the last dot. Or as the game calls it, a video wafer. For some reason, the Atari 2600 version of this game has its own lingo. And you can tell it's how I touched the Power Pill game. The little individual lingo that this version of the game has is clearly a bald-faced attempt by Atari to keep from admitting that they couldn't make this like the original arcade game. The dots are called video wafers. I'm dead serious. That's what it's called in the manual. I'm not making this up. That's what it's called. That's what the dots are called. Video wafers. The Power Pills are still called Power Pills. And what's supposed to be the fruit are called vitamins. They actually had to call the little gold square just below where the ghosts spawn vitamins to get around the fact that they couldn't bring the fruit to the Atari 2600 port. That's kind of sad, to be honest. And I might as well go ahead and read from the Wikipedia article about the weird development of this game. So obviously, this game was licensed for production for the Atari 2600 after Pac-Man succeeded in the United States, and it was all programmed by one guy named Todd Fry. He was not provided with any arcade design specifications to work from and had to figure out how the game worked by playing it. And he developed the game, or at least the Atari 2600 version of it, over 6 months in 80-hour weeks. The finished game uses a 4 kilobyte ROM cartridge chosen for its lower manufacturing costs compared to 8 kilobyte bank switch cartridges which had recently become available. Something tells me that was a mistake. As with any contemporary arcade port, the simple Atari 2600 hardware was a considerable limitation. The arcade Pac-Man system board contained 2 kilobytes of main RAM in which to run the program, 2 kilobytes of video RAM to store the screen state, and 16 kilobits of ROM to store the game code. Whereas the Atari 2600 featured only 128 bytes of RAM and none dedicated to video. Effectively 32 times less RAM. The Zilog Z80 CPU microprocessor used by the Namco Pac-Man arcade game is clocked at 3 times the speed of the MOS 6507 CPU in the Atari 2600, though the Z80 typically does less work per clock cycle. So, in this first paragraph for the Atari 2600 version of Pac-Man, which I will put in the description, already this version of the game had stuff going against it because the Atari 2600 packed nowhere near the punch of an arcade machine. This was definitely during a time where you could get much better looking, sounding, playing games in the arcade rather than at home. So, you can tell just from that, as well as Todd Fry working with almost nothing, that the game had stuff going against it from the start. And I'm going to play Mode 2 again before I mention more. And by the way, I'm not even lying about the whole video wafers and the vitamins thing. I wish I was. That's actually what they're called in the manual. You know what? This is getting terrible. Let's try this again. as I was saying, I'm not lying about some of the weird name changes that they gave things in the game for the Atari 2600 version. It's all right there in the manual, which you can easily find on the internet if you just look for Pac-Man Atari 2600 manual. And they're even in the Wikipedia article as well. I should also talk about the commercial for the game, because it's been mentioned. I know that when Sax Cat of the Gaming Corner, aka Chris of the Gaming Corner, mentioned the game and talked about it, when he and Disco Bob, aka Adam, made fun of some of the commercials for video games back at that time, when Chris and Adam were riffing on those, they mentioned that there was virtually no gameplay on the commercial for Pac-Man for Atari 2600. It was just hand-drawn art, very well hand-drawn art, mind you, of two kids playing Atari. And it's the whole song about playing Atari, which leads into the whole "Have you played a game from Atari? Have you played Atari today?" chorus, where they talk about things that happen while playing Pac-Man. And that's all you see. You just see pictures of the kids playing Pac-Man, and that's it. You don't see any gameplay, which should have been a red flag then. Definitely a red flag now, in this day and age where people definitely want to see gameplay footage, and my word, these ghosts are fast. It's almost like Atari knew that if people saw the game before they bought it from store shelves, that people would not buy it. They just went completely on hype. And because of that, people just bought it thinking, oh, we're going to get the game just like it was in the arcade, when, sorry, Charlie, it wasn't. And I'm pretty sure there's more than one commercial for this game. But the one with the hand-drawn art of the kids playing Atari with no gameplay footage whatsoever, I'm pretty sure is the most popular one. The most well-known one. And I am doing better at this because I'm not going straight for the ghosts. Imagine that. And I tip my hat. Of course, the ghosts are going to come back. They're going to come back from the square-shaped spawning area, like they always do. But at least I can get stuff done when they're not coming after me. Interestingly, the individual ghosts do have their own AI. Like, all 4 ghosts do behave differently. It's up to you to figure out which one does what. But when you do, that happens less often. Though they do eventually catch up with you. Fun! That's what I get. And you know what? I think I'll use my last power pill to get the last of everything. And there we go. That'll get me at least one more extra life. And I could not grab the power pill in time. I've had at least 2 or 3 instances so far in this video where I think I can grab a power pill just in time, only to find out that I can't. And it's kind of disheartening every time this happens. At least I can get a ton of points doing this. as well go ahead and talk about my score, since my score seems to be pretty good at the moment. If this were the arcade version right now, I would have 47,840 points. Everything is like worth a tenth of what it is in the arcade game on Atari 2600. Funny vocabulary for all the things in the game aside. So I would have ended with 47,860 after, what, clearing 3 or 4 screens? I honestly didn't keep track of how many screens I've been playing for. I'm assuming that was the 4th. And now that I've played some more of Game Mode 2, I might as well go ahead and mention the second full paragraph from the Wikipedia article for the Atari 2600 version of Pac-Man. Because this version is so notorious. To deal with these limitations, the limitations that I mentioned earlier, Fry simplified the maze's intricate patterns of corridors to a more repetitive pattern, which you can definitely see is a lot more repetitive and definitely a mirror image horizontally of itself. Like the right side of the maze is a mirror image of the left. The small 10 pellets in the arcade original were changed to rectangular wafers that shared the wall color on 2600. A change necessitated because both the pellets and the walls were drawn with the 2600's playfield graphics, which have a fixed width. To achieve the visual effects of wafers disappearing as Pac-Man eats them, the actual map of the maze was updated as the data was written into the playfield registers, excluding those pellets that had been eaten. The 2600's player missile graphics system, sprites, was used for the remaining objects. The 1-bit wide missiles were used to render the flashing power pills in the center of the vitamin. Which kind of explains why the center of the vitamin and the power pills look like the exact same size square. Because they are. Pac-Man and Ghost characters were implemented using the 2600's 2-player objects, with one being used for Pac-Man and the other being used for all 4 ghosts, with the result that each ghost only appears once out of every 4 frames, which creates a flickering effect. This explains why the ghosts are flashing, unlike in the arcade version. This is a thing that a lot of people basically sour on the game on when they talk about it. Because the ghosts flash in this game when they obviously didn't on arcade. This effect takes advantage of the slow phosphorescent fade of CRT monitors and the concept of persistence of vision, resulting in the image to appearing to linger on screen longer, but the flickering remains noticeable and makes each individual ghost color nearly impossible to discern. I honestly couldn't even tell the 4 ghosts apart just by looking at them. They all looked like the same color to me. Fry chose to abandon plans for a flicker management system to minimize the flashing in part because Atari didn't seem to care about that issue in its zeal to have the game release. Atari was going to rush this game, and by George, they did. According to Fry, his game also did not conform to the arcade game's color scheme in order to comply with Atari's official home product policy that only space-type games should feature black backgrounds. Oh, good grief, Atari. I didn't even know about this. Another quality impact was his decision that 2-player gameplay was important, which meant that 23 bytes required to store it. Okay, start over. Another quality impact was his decision that 2-player gameplay was important, which meant that the 23 bytes required to store the current difficulty, state of the dots in the current maze, remaining lives, and the score had to be doubled for a second player, consuming 46 of the 2600's meager 128-byte memory, which precluded its use for additional game data and features. Oh dear. The fact that two-player mode even exists on this port of the game at all is amazing. Oft-repeated stories claim that the company wanted to or did release a prototype in order to capitalize on the 1981 holiday season. However, the retail release was a final product. Fry states that there were no negative comments within Atari about these elements, but after seeing the game, Coin Division marketing manager Frank Ballows, I may have pronounced his name wrong, reportedly informed Ray Kassar, Atari's president and CEO, that he felt enthusiasts would not want to play it. His opinion, however, was dismissed. The company ran newspaper ads and promoted the product in catalogs, describing it as differing slightly from the original. Does this look like slightly to you? To help sales, Atari promoted and protected its exclusive licensing of Pac-Man. It took legal action against companies that released clones similar to Pac-Man, which is why Philips got sued for KC Munchkin, and Philips lost. Of course, Atari failed to stop other games such as Online Systems Jawbreaker and Gobbler. And the rest is history. This game sold 8 million copies, even though they had pre-orders for 3 or 4 million. Fry reportedly received 10 cents in royalties per copy, but they would still sell a lot of copies. They would ship more than 1 million cartridges in less than a month, after Atari spent $1.5 million on a publicity campaign for this. It became the best-selling home video game of 1982, with over 7.2 million cartridges sold that year, and another 800,000 sold in subsequent years. And it surpassed Space Invaders to become the best-selling Atari 2600 title and the overall best-selling video game up until then. It also propelled Atari 2600 sales to 12 million units by 1982. And while it sold a whole lot and made a lot of money, it's also notorious for being nothing like the arcade version. And so, we have played Game Mode 2. We have 6 more game modes to go, and I want to talk about them and play them. Join me next time where we play Game Mode 3. Until then, this is PrinceWatercress. Take care, stay safe, and thanks for watching!